Hey, I'm Jen Brewer. I was born and raised in St. Catharines. I currently live in Hamilton, and I play drums in Astral. Instruments I play, mainly drums and bass, some guitar, dabble with keys. I play some cello, not very well, but it's probably my favorite instrument to play, even though I don't play it very well. All right, so influences growing up. Earliest memory, I would say, probably my parents. My dad played guitar, and there was always a piano in the house, so both of my parents played piano. Um, you ask my dad now, and he'll say, I can barely play guitar, it's nothing. But I'm like, yeah, but like when I was a kid, he was like, oh, like guitar player, you know? And I'm sure it was just like fiddly, folky, whatever stuff, but it was amazing back then. Um, and then the piano, like, I was really young. That was probably my first memory was piano. And if whoever was playing, the other person that wasn't playing, me and them were dancing around the living room. So it was always the three of us. Someone was playing piano, the rest of us were dancing. That was a really cool memory. So it was just kind of like music was just like pure happiness and like in a perfect, safe, supportive space. You know, I don't know, something about it from an early age.
Yeah.
So that was obviously going to be influential. Um, so beyond that, also my dad would have a friend over playing spoons. My dad and I used to play together a lot, and just like acoustically, nothing like serious or whatever. But he just would teach me some chords or whatever. My dad would have a guy over playing spoons, and I would just watch them, and like that was awesome. So after that, I was like, I need a guitar, clearly. And so he bought me a little acoustic guitar and we'd play together. And that was awesome. And then actually, I think it was my neighbors. There was a friend of my neighbors who was a really cool guy. And he was a lot older than me, but he was just a cool guy. And he played guitar. And so he just plopped a electric guitar in my hand one day and then showed me some chords. And I was just like, oh, this is cool. It was the old, like, Japanese made SG. I don't know. It was just like really cheap, whatever. But I still have it actually, and that was a huge influence on me to play. Then beyond that, I would say probably my friend had her family just listened to classic rock, like a lot of stuff that I'd never heard before, like Led Zeppelin and stuff. My parents were pretty like kind of John Denver-ish. You know what I mean? So I didn't really hear a lot of like rock and roll, you know. And that's probably where I first heard Led Zeppelin. I remember Zeppelin 4 being on and just being like, oh, okay, I need to play also bass and drums and like I need to do all these things because I was like, I need this. And so I went home to my dad and I was like, okay, I need a bass. And so no, actually, before that, I said, I just actually went out and bought a bass. I don't know how I saved money. I went out and bought to a pawn shop and bought an old PV bass. Loved it, and got a little amp, really crappy, just like practice amp. Loved it, and played for a while. And then I said to my dad, I need drums now, and he was like, okay, you save for like half of the drums by your birthday, and I'll pay for the other half for your birthday. And I was like, no problem. So I saved, got drums, and that's when I started being in bands pretty much. Like I wasn't in bands until I got drums for a while, you know. And actually what another real big influence, it was really funny, before I got drums, when I got my bass, and I was just playing for maybe a couple of months or something. I didn't really know what I was doing much. And there was a kid in my class who got a drum set maybe like 3 months previously or something. So he was new as well. And he was like, let's jam sometime. And I was like, yeah, sure. And I loved drums at the time, but I hadn't never played drums before, or even really late. I had eyes on drums probably. And so I went over there and we jammed, and I'm sure it was terrible. And I remember looking at his drums and being like, I want to get behind those drums. So I was just like staring at his drums. And he went off to the washroom or whatever, and I was like, hey, can I play your drums? And he was like, yeah, sure. So I played his drums, and I just played, like, I don't know, just a basic rock beat or something. But the point was that I played a basic rock beat without ever, nobody, nothing, I knew nothing, right? And he was just like, hey, you told me you never played drums before. And I was like, I haven't. I just, and he was like, get off my drums. And we never jammed again. That was the end of it. But that was a big, like, okay, now I need drums. Yeah, so that was probably my main influences growing up. So, what got me into punk metal hardcore? I would say probably metal came first. Sorry, my phone is listening to me. Hold on, it does this weird thing, and I have to tell it to shut up. It just randomly listens to me. What? I didn't hear that. So I started with probably metal. Really, it was like a visual influence, I would say, to me first, because I never had access to listen to things. But like, I was very, like, my parents expected me to be very prim and proper. Well, not just my parents, my family and whatever. It was just viewed as they wanted me to be a cute little girl and not really do anything weird. Mistake number one.
So true, yeah.
So, yeah, I hated that. Like, I hated that. I was always loving when I saw something different. Like, no matter how minuscule it was like, finally something out of the norm. Like, I didn't want to look like everyone else. I was like, what's the point of even doing all of this if everything is the same and y'all are the same person? You just need one of yous. It's just like, I don't get it. So it bothered me. I don't know where that started, but it just naturally bothered me. So, like, when I saw anything different, like, I was really drawn to it, Or people that also, kind of shunned that was interesting to me. So I paid attention to what they were listening to or doing. And, of course, older brothers of my friends, like, I would, we'd walk by their bedroom and I would see the posters up or hear them listening to music, and I was just like, and there was my friend who was listening to whatever, probably something that I wasn't overly interested in. I had a couple friends that were listening to the same sort of music, but for the most part, everybody was doing other stuff and that I wasn't interested in. But and I would always want to, like, peek in the bedroom when they're not there. And I remember, like, seeing, like, Motley Crue posters on the wall and stuff, and being like, holy smokes, people dress that way, like, they must be super interesting. Like, what kind of music would they possibly play? Like, just the questions that I had just by looking at that poster, it really drew me in. Seeing, like, I remember seeing album covers, like the artwork, like, that was super fascinating. Seeing Dayglow Abortions, like, album cover, I was like, who are these people? Like, the people that my friends or that I'm exposed to or whatever, like, they don't have album covers like that. So, like, where is this music, And so that's why I was, like, very, like, any opportunity I got. Like, I remember, actually, the first punk that I saw, I was in the backseat of, my dad was driving and my grandma was with me, and there was a guy running down the street with this giant blue mohawk, and he had, like, vest patches and, like, running down the street, total punk. And it was the first time I'd ever seen anybody dressed that way, and I was like, oh, that's awesome! And my grandmother, I think, like, I probably made some sort of remark or gasped or something, because she was like, Jennifer, you don't like that, do you? And I was like, no. But inside I was like, yes, just a natural kind of drawn to it, So that was kind of a mix, I guess. It wasn't really necessarily a punk thing or a metal thing, or it was just something different, And then once I discovered, you're always going to be exposed to whatever is in front of you, whether it be your older siblings or your friends' older siblings, whatever they're listening to, what's on maybe TV that you can find or in magazines or somewhere or something, just looking at cool pictures in magazines sometimes was enough to be like, I like that band, I don't know what they sound like, but I really like them. And so it was more of a visual thing to me. And so I was exposed to a little bit of punk, not a lot really, like punk, like it was probably first I remember being introduced, like the Ramones was probably the first band, and I really liked the Ramones. And that was really exciting to me because it was nothing that I'd ever heard before, and I appreciated that it seemed like they didn't really care that they were different. They actually embraced it, That was very empowering to me. So it was like, well, yeah, who doesn't want to be empowered, You're gonna want to
Exactly.
do what you're drawn to. So that was probably, it was initial a punk thing, but then it kind of very swiftly turned into metal. I think because that, I think it's really because of I blame magazines. Like that was what was at the Avondale across from me was, yeah, exactly, Hip Raider, and I can't even remember them now.
Metal
Um,
Maniacs.
yeah, there was a lot of them. I had such a collection of them, but it was like, it was more the metal, the genre that was in them. So that I was just naturally drawn to that. So, um, probably initially I think was like old Metallica. It was going to be obviously stuff that's out there, like the odd time they would play on 97.7 or something like that. They actually used to play really good music on 97.7, like metal stuff you would not normally hear on the radio, It was great for that. And then there was, much music. It was scrambled at the time, I remember, but you could watch it for like a few seconds at the time. Change the channel, go back real quick, see if you can get it.
I remember that.
Yeah, you'd see some real different stuff on there, and eventually you could watch it, and then there's Power Hour and all that stuff. So, yeah, I thought it was really cool. So it was a little skidly growing up because of that, but I've still always loved punk too. Like it wasn't like a really a preference. It was just kind of like what was there in front of me, I guess. But I remember probably after that was Sex Pistols, after the Ramones, and so I remember having that tape, maybe, never mind the Bullocks, and obviously quite different than what I grew up with as well, and so that was pretty cool. Yeah, and then it just like I said, my friends, they're always listening to classic rock, so it was like Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. It was all kind of that stuff. That was super awesome. And then I don't know. I think I progressively went darker and darker, so I went more into like the Cannibal Corpse,
Yeah.
Deicide, some Slayer, whatever, that sort of side of things, Carcass and whatever. Loved all that stuff for quite some time. And then just being in bands, it made me have to learn other things, right? So I would be like in a cover band or something. So it was like I had to learn other things and expose myself to other things. That was good. Hardcore really came a lot later in life. It wasn't really until I was even in punk bands that I discovered other hardcore bands by playing shows with other hardcore bands, and I was like, oh, like the energy was like, whoa, yeah, like for sure, because I liked the fast stuff already, and I liked the punk, like the Ramones, Sex Pistols kind of side of things, I remember so he has gas. It happens. And I remember like a kid in my class, actually. I remember being in grade 9, and there was this kid in my class who he never made it very often, but he was really cool, and he had no friends, and he didn't really care about it, and he seemed to actually like it, and I thought that was the coolest thing. And I remember seeing written on the side of his pencil case, Teenage Head, and I was like, Teenage Head, that's a really cool name, and it was just like, obviously this guy's cool, so Teenage Head has to be cool, so it was like anytime you heard the name or like heard it come up, someone would be like, yeah, they're cool, I know they're cool. So it was just kind of like visually seeing things, and then like like doing my best to check it out. But yeah, hardcore again, it was really the last thing to come, but I love it. It's very cool. I'm still very much discovering. There was a lot of bands that like a lot of people that the good friends that like know a lot more than I do, because I wasn't so exposed as early in life to all of that stuff, So I'm still learning a lot about it, but very good stuff. All right, first show. I don't remember which one came first. I think which came first was Glass Tiger at Gage Park. I think it was Glass Tiger. I also saw Katie Lang at Gage Park, and I don't remember which one came out first. But I remember she came out in a dress on a motorcycle, and I was like, that was kind of neat. Yeah, I would say that was probably one of those were my first concerts. My parents were they sold in Gage Park all the time, so I grew up in was born and raised in St. Catharines, but we came to Hamilton a lot to do these shows, whatever the festivals and stuff like that. So I would see whoever was playing at those festivals. That's the first that I can remember that was substantial. It was probably Glass Tiger, yeah. And I maybe became a fan for a little while.
I still like Platinum Blonde.
Yeah, yeah. I saw Honeymoon Suite. I remember there. You know who I saw who I really liked at the time was 5440. They really made an impression on me. I don't know why. They seemed obviously they're not heavy or anything like that, but they were at the time pretty much the heaviest thing I'd ever heard. Really, Yeah, I remember hearing like "Shout" by Tears for Fears and being like, "Oh, this is so heavy. Oh my God, what is this?"
Oh man.
First metal show? Punk show? Metal show. First one, like stadium, was Metallica, Aerosmith, Warrant, and Black Crowes in Toronto, C&E. Warrant didn't. I don't think Warrant played very long. I think that they got booed off pretty early on. I felt so bad for them.
Yeah, I would too.
I did. I felt bad for them. Like, you made fun of them, whatever, at the time, amongst friends, whatever. But, like, I was like, okay, that sucks. Like, that's gotta suck, right? Terrible. Metallica is who I went for. Aerosmith was good, I liked them. But Metallica was who I went for, and they blew me away. This was, I don't know, Injustice for All days, I guess. And then seen them many times after that. And then I think like a month after that I saw Kiss, and then I was like ridiculous Kiss fan. Like, I'm not even gonna say. I went to the whatever conventions and stuff. Did what I could. Anyway, punk show, probably the first one that I can remember was probably Sick Boys in St. Catharines. They're from there. Yeah, probably Sick Boys. I haven't seen a lot of punk shows like growing up. I'd seen some in the last 10 years or whatever, but yeah, it was more like metal, punk, metal,
Yeah.
So. Favorite shows. Probably my favorite shows are the ones when I was younger and I was kind of discovering music. Like maybe bands that I don't listen to today, but they were special because of, I was suddenly with a bunch of people who were sort of like me, and there wasn't very many people like me growing up. That sounds so weird. You know what I mean? Not a lot of people that listen to the same amount of music or same kind of music, and, didn't really want to blend in. So, those were good concerts for that reason. It would be like, old Metallica concerts or like the earlier stuff, Kiss concerts or I don't know, that kind of stuff. Oddly, one of my favorite concerts, I wasn't going to say this, but I think I'll tell you anyways, was I saw Elton John. Okay, I'm not an Elton John fan, but like I got these free tickets, okay? I was like, okay, well, I got free tickets to see Elton John. And I was working at the Hamilton Spectator at the time, so they comped a lot, like the whole office, these tickets, and they opened up a whole back section and stuff. And I was able to bring like a few friends too, and I was blown away. I couldn't believe it, and I was like, I'm blown away at an Elton John concert. He was awesome. He seemed so appreciative. Like after every song, like he gave it through every song. He was smashing that piano. And, like, after every song, almost every song, he was just, like, getting up. And the audience was almost completely around him. Like, he was right in the middle kind of thing, And he would get up and just at all sides and be like, thank you, wow, like, holy smokes, like, thank you. Like, it seemed like he was genuinely, like, blown away. And that like, you just don't see that very often, And it was genuine. And he played so well, obviously. He's been around for a long time. I'm sure he's very well versed. But it didn't seem like he was just like going through the motions to me, It was very genuine, and it was a really cool experience. So Elton John was one of my favorite concerts, oddly. Motorhead. Motorhead was, so I dated someone who was really into Motorhead. This was how I was kind of introduced to Motorhead, and Black Sabbath. And I saw them in, I believe it was 95. It's a long time ago.
Where else? Concert Hall?
No, Niagara-on-the-Lake, at Polonia Park. That's called. Motorhead, I had no idea. I knew, like, I'd heard some of their stuff. I knew the hits or whatever, Ace of Spades. I knew some stuff. It was cool. Didn't know much about them. I found out how loud they were because I was standing right in front of one of the speakers on the right-hand side. I was standing right in front. Thought I was gonna completely explode. So I had to move back, and that's what I was like, yeah. That's definitely the loudest concert, or the loudest band I've seen. I've seen them since then, of course, and they were always very loud. That's true. And that was the first time I'd ever seen Black Sabbath, and I kind of, I got into them a little bit before that, so I didn't know too much about Black Sabbath either. Yeah, that blew me away. That's a standout for sure. What else? Oh, man. Guar was amazing. I've seen them a few times, but man, yeah, like, especially when you just come out of there with, you know, like, oh my god, you must have had a good time. So cool. I love theatrics. Like, I love theatrics, obviously, growing up, loving Kiss and really being into all that kind of stuff, being into horror movies and all that. Just, that was a huge influence, too. So I loved any band that did get that kind of stuff. Who else? L7 was one of the funnest concerts. That was only, I don't even know, maybe 4 years ago or something, but in Toronto. But it was just like, I'd loved them for so long, and I finally got to see them, and we're right front and center, and stage dove, and got to do all the things that you want to do when you're younger, and they played so good, and now that you know, have been around a little bit, and you've seen, you know music more, and kind of like, you see certain things and look for certain things, and it was cool to see one of the bands that you've been into for so long being like, looking at what they're playing and how they're playing, and, you know, like, so that was a wicked experience. I have tickets for that show coming up too. I think they're playing in another month or something in Toronto. So, yeah. Ooh, I recently saw Nick Cave, and I'm slightly obsessed with Nick Cave right now. Depends who you ask.
I didn't understand that.
My phone is listening to me again. So you didn't understand that. How do you not understand that? Weird. Anyway. Stupid phone. So, yeah, Nick Cave. I'm a little bit obsessed with him. If you ask my partner, she will tell you I'm very obsessed with him. So I got tickets. I got 2 tickets. I don't know anybody else who knows Nick Cave or even likes him remotely as much as I do. But I thought, I don't even care. I'll go by myself. I don't even care. And so I didn't know who I was going to take. And Lee was like, I'd like to go. And I'm like, okay, maybe this will work out. Like, maybe she'll become an Uber fan too. And she'll be like, oh, I get it now, you know? And I can have someone to, like, you know. She thought it was a great concert. Like, she was like, yeah, I was totally impressed. Like, I like him definitely a lot more than I ever did, but like, it didn't she's not like me, so she's probably lucky. Yeah. So anyways, that was a really cool experience, talking about liking all different kinds of music though, right? Like, being able to appreciate all different things. Again, so different. That was so different. That was probably the last one. I think that was just last May. Yeah. Those are probably my most standout ones. So I have to add White Zombie. Oh, that was such a good show. Varsity Arena, I don't know when that was, 90, whatever that was, 4, 94, 93, I don't know. Anyways, in there. And they played with Melvins and Reverend Horton Heat. And one of them, I guess it was the Melvins drummer, was puking while he was playing or something. That was kind of neat. Anyways, we were at the front row and center, and I went with a few friends who were also like super White Zombie freaks. We just loved White Zombie at the time, and we put X's on our head. And we were at the front row, and what a blast.
Nice.
Holy crap. Definitely a favorite show if that has to be in there.
Yeah, White Zombie.
Craziest shows. A few of them stick out kind of, I think. One time, nothing really crazy happened at the show, but it's crazy that this show happened. That one of my previous bands, Pantychrist, got to play World Pride on the Alterna Queer stage, I think they called it, with Ginger Coyote, Lydia Lunch,
Nice.
and Pansy Division.
Nice. That's different.
I know, right? But I was like, holy smokes, like, that's just that happening, like, blew me away. I love Lydia Lunch, and, like, it was just, like, they were so out of touch to me, and it was just so cool that we were actually playing with them, so that's, you know,
Yeah.
that's a big thing. For me, that stands out. Another time, let's see, there's kind of like a 2-in-1 story. So we played this show, one of my last bands, Pantychrist, played a show in Barrie, and it was kind of an interesting show in that somewhere halfway through, I don't know who called somebody up to play the guitar with their unit. So Emma O, the guitar player, played while he played, and his back was facing me, so I didn't see anything, but I can't imagine that felt very good.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that would feel very good.
No.
That was a really funny happening, though. Obviously, that
Yeah.
a lot of people found that very interesting.
That's disturbing.
So, the other part of that story was that it was all videotaped. And one day, shortly after that, so at the time, Pantychrist hadn't played in a long time, probably 4 years or so, 3.5 years, and so that was our first show after a long time. And so we wanted to watch it, and while at the time that we wanted to watch it, Reagan Youth happened to be at my house. They needed a place to stay. They were touring with Daglos, and somebody, I think it was MO, that called me actually, or messaged me and said, "Hey, Reagan Youth needs a place to stay. I don't have a room. Like, do you have the room?" Knowing that I had a house, I have a small house, but whatever. I was like, well, I can, if they want close quarters, like, yeah, of course, like, for sure, right? So, they stayed over, and then Willie from Daglos came over pretty much to see Danielle. They hadn't seen each other in a long time. She couldn't go to the show, so I just came over to visit her before the show, and then so I'm like, there was just a moment of me standing there in my living room looking and going, Reagan Youth and part of the Daglos are sitting here watching one of my bands on TV, and we're just like laughing about it and talking about it in that time, and like, you know what I mean? I was just like, holy crap, like, what a moment that was, you know? Yeah, that was a really cool moment. So it's kind of a 2-in-1 story. So, bands that I have been in or am in as Astral currently. I've been in Astral for, the band's been around for 7 years, and I've been in it for, I believe, 6, something like that. Previously, I was in Pantychrist. I was in that for quite a few years as well. I was in Come Out Swinging. I was actually in Pantychrist, Come Out Swinging, and Astral all at the same time at one time, of course. And then whittled it down. I was in a lot of bands that didn't go anywhere. You know, you jam and write songs for like 3 months or 4 months, and you don't have a gig, and then it's done. But I still remember them, right? Still, one was called Headless Fear Committee. That was the coolest band I remember. It was a bizarre band. And it was kind of a band that I got to rehash all of the stuff that I had written a long time ago and never came to fruition for probably good reasons. But I brought it to this band and we all played it, so that was served that reason. I was in. I had a giant hiatus where I wasn't in any bands, and I stayed in music as far as like in a solo capacity, but just like songwriting and, you know, not really playing anywhere, like just maybe in front of some friends or something like that, but no like big shows or anything. For quite a few years I did that, which I hated at the time because I wanted to play with people, but now looking back it was really awesome because I learned a lot. Like I just you know, as far as being able to play better, being able to write better, like, so that was good for that. I was in a band with my friend Raywin. I don't know if you know Raywin. She was one of the bands. I was in a band with her.
Roberts?
It was the first band after after my long hiatus, was in a band with her, and we weren't together very long, but I think we played 2 shows or something. Toronto and the Mermaid Lounge, actually.
Nice.
The Mermaid Lounge, yeah. So that's kind of fun for what it was, and yeah, like I said before that, it was a huge hiatus, and then before that, it was bands in St. Catharines. So it was like I was in a band called The Wicked. That was my first band that was like kind of serious. Like we played our own stuff, and we, you know, would rent a 4-track and do demos, and it was the first band of that kind of thing. We wore some corpse paint, and we were super into White Zombie, so it was very White Zombie-ish, and it was a lot of fun. Actually, our claim to fame when I was in the band, because they continued after I was out of the band, was we opened up for Mel Havoc.
Nice.
Oh, that was amazing, at the Frat House, actually.
Nice.
That was really cool. Actually, a funny story about that too. I remember playing that show, being so nervous, because for when I played drums for a little while, but I was still very green, and you know, it was just like I knew what we played. That was kind of like we played the same stuff, and I knew that, and that was a very like just play that, you know, and I was very nervous, and I looked to the side while I'm playing. The side like fire escape, whatever, door is open, and my parents are standing there. I'm like, I get suddenly super angry. I'm like, angry, but like, you know, I'm like, what the heck, man? Like, this is the worst time to be the proud parents. It was terrible, but funny. Yeah, where was I? Oh yeah, bands I was in. So that was that band, and before that, it was just mostly cover bands, which is good, getting my feet wet. I remember I was in a cover band before that, and we were together for probably a couple of years. I think maybe we had 4 or 5 originals, but mostly it was covers. It was called Empty Chambers.
Oh, yeah?
And I remember one song, the singer, during the guitar solo, the singer had an electric can opener, and they would do solo trade-offs with an electric can opener. It was a blues song. And it was about opening cans of beans and stuff. Like it was really wacky, but people loved it. It was like our hit. There was a couple times we even played it twice. It was like we play it, you know, in the middle of the show, and then we play for an encore. People were like, play the can opener! Like, we're gonna blow the roof off, play the can opener! Alright, we'll play the can opener. Yeah, so that was that band. And before that, it was just mostly like jamming with people where we, you know, maybe we played like a Battle of the Bands at a high school or something.
Yeah.
Playing some covers. I think the first cover that I ever played, like outside of, you know, just with people in a room, like band people, was Tie Your Mama Down. I had no business playing that song on drums, but I somehow played it, Tie Your Mama Down, at a high school, Battle of the Bands or whatever. And I'm sure it was terrible, but we thought we were awesome. There's 5 or 6 of us in the band too, and I remember like being like, there was 1 or 2 guys on guitar, saying guitar loosely because they didn't really play anything. I think it was like, you know, there's just these guys that got some, you know, they just really want to do something like this, and you're like, okay, well, we don't know what we're doing anyway, so welcome, sit and play a little something, if you know it, in between. Like, it's very, very, you know, kind of loose, made up stuff, but it was fun. Kind of like, it was kind of the first, you know, how to play with people rather than just by yourself band. So that was useful in that manner. But yeah, that's my history of bands. A band that I, funny me, forgot, which was not very long ago, was Jolly Cuts. So Jolly Cuts was half Dracula, half Pantychrist. The rhythm section actually was Pantychrist, and the rest was Dracula. Yeah, so that was a really cool band. We only played like maybe a handful of shows, half dozen shows, but managed to get on some pretty cool bills, White Cowboy, Oklahoma, and just kind of somehow, just because we were already in bands, just kind of, you know, that magical thing happens that you get together with people that are like-minded, and you're able to kind of gel everything together really well. So that was good. It was short-lived. We never really actually broke up. We kind of, maybe we're still a band. I don't know. We just don't play together anymore. It's like, you know, you get busy and kind of start doing stuff, and maybe one day. But yeah,
One day,
band of the past. Thing that I like most about being a musician, and thing I dislike the most. Thing that I like the most, that's a hard one because I like most things about being a musician. So, thing that I like the most, being able to create. I love creating things. I do art and painting and whatever. I do whatever building, whatever anything that I can get my hands on. So creating something is a whole big thing for me. So whether it's by myself or in a band, you're creating together something you've never heard before, or something that's never existed, and something that gets you super excited and you want to show people, and that's probably my favorite thing about being a musician. Learning new instruments better, that's always going to be, of course, being the best musician you could be is going to be obviously something that you like about music. Thing I don't like, it's funny because I'm trying to think of that. Obviously, which probably is everybody's answer, is not making enough money.
or being a drummer, lugging your gear.
Lugging your gear, yeah. I'm lucky to, that, especially in the winter, right? Like, stands are so cold, you gotta make sure you have to have gloves. Yeah, that sucks for sure. And not making enough money. And you know what I think I hate the least, or the thing that I dislike the most, is playing a show that is awesome. You love being there. You're having the greatest time ever. You love it. Playing, it's great. And it's the very end of the very last song. And you're like, I don't want this to stop. And it's that feeling of, I mean, you're still on a high because you played, but it's just like, you want that. You want to retain that, Kind of a silly thing maybe to not like, but I dislike that. Favorite food. So I was watching Mike Travelcock's video the other day, and it was funny because I was like, man, his answer for favorite food is basically my answer. So cue that video. But same, I'm vegan, and everything he said was just bang on. Same, like probably I would say Indian food is my favorite. Yeah, I would say Indian food is my favorite. I really love everything as long as obviously there's no meat in it or animals, and as long as there's no pineapple or raisins, because those are the root of all evil. Or cilantro, that's actually up there too. Everything else is bomb. I would say also that I crave all the time those bowls. I think they're called like Buddha bowls or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't even want to call it a
Fresh.
salad because it's not even a salad. It's just like everything in a bowl. Like, it's super healthy, usually, unless there's a sauce on it or something. But like, or like a green bar. They have really great Buddha bowls. But it's like beans and tofu and shredded things and raw veg, but like there's enough of everything that it's like, it's okay. It's not like you're eating a bunch of beans, you know what I mean? Like, I crave that all the time. So I would say that's my favorite food, and Indian food, any Indian food that's vegan, pakoras or bhajis or... Oh man, I love deep fried stuff too. Yeah, anything vegan deep fried is good too. I go from, super healthy bowl to deep fried whatever. What else? I've got to say that I love avocados. I'm sorry, I know avocado toast. Sorry about avocados with toast. I have a house and I eat avocado toast. But yeah, those are my favorite foods. Useless talent. It's kind of a tough one, and honestly, the only thing I can think of that is useless, semi-useless, is I'm really good at Tetris. Like, you normally tell people, I'm really good at Tetris, and they go, oh, I'm good at Tetris too. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
You're really good.
Like, I'm really good at Tetris. Like Tetris Queen, K. Tetris Queen. And I say semi-useless because I think that it's really actually helped me in life to pack gear super efficiently. Like, I'll find a place for everything, and I'll utilize that space really well. And there's always space for something. And when there's no room for that. Oh yes, there is. I play Tetris.